one of those things.
Someone built a bigger house next door.
Oh, yeah, yeah. She lived down by the lake.
She says she's got a big file here. I said, well, give me your name.
It's probably Jamie. All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. This is our town board agenda meeting. I want to point out the exits. There are two exits in the back of the room. That one goes directly outside. This one goes into the hall the way you came. You can get out through there. That's my office and out into the hall, and that is not an exit. So the first thing on our agenda tonight is a public hearing about exceeding the tax cap. So we'll call a public hearing at 6 o'clock. Just to explain a little bit about what the tax cap is and why this year's budget does exceed the tax cap. So the tax cap is based on the tax levy, the amount of money that the municipality collects in taxes overall, the tax dollars. It is not the tax rate. This year, on October 1st, we purchased Saratoga Water Services with overwhelming resident support. And in that process, we had to borrow $14.3 million for the purchase. That will be paid back via a tax. It will be only the residents in the district that will pay the tax, so not the entire town of Malta. So it's now residents and businesses that are customers of the Malta Water District Number 1. But the way the tax law is written, because only even a portion of town pays the tax, that contributes to the tax levy. The other taxes that we collect are the fire protection tax, the library tax, the tax for the EMS, and there's several other districts, lighting districts. We have a new drainage district. But all of that combined, there will be an increased tax of $1.7 million for the water district. Another thing that has contributed to that necessity is we increased some of the appropriations to the two fire companies that offer fire protection services to the town of Malta. That's the Malta Ridge Volunteer Fire Company and the Village of Round Lake. And then we have an additional $35,000 in our preliminary budget for the ambulance, Malta Stillwater EMS. So that being said, is anyone out there here to speak on the exceeding the tax cap in our preliminary budget? Nobody here for the tax cap? No?
Cynthia, would note for the record, you did receive a letter regarding.
Oh, we did. We received a letter regarding it. Thanks, Steve. We've received a letter from the president of the Malta Stillwater EMS. That letter has been distributed to the town board, and it will be on file and in the official minutes with the town clerk. If anybody's interested in that. You need to step up to the podium and say your name, please.
Yeah, I'm Rick Weiss. I live on Old Post Road. I think most of you know me. You just said that the people that are going to be utilizing the water from this new purchase with $14 million are the ones that will be paying for it. But yet you're saying you need to increase the tax on the rest of us to somehow, I think I've lost.
Yep, no, that's not the case.
Yep.
So the rest of the residents will not be paying for the water district at all.
Right.
But the way the tax law is written, even though it's only part of the town
Right.
that will pay that extra tax, the calculation makes us exceed the tax cap. A little bit more about the fire, though, before you go on. Basically, the addition of the fire protection tax, right now, you're paying 76 cents per thousand.
Mm-hmm.
The preliminary budget proposes that you pay 77 cents per thousand.
Yeah.
So that also is contributing to us exceeding the tax cap.
So if this tax levy takes place, if this increase in tax levy, what's it going to look like to us?
To you, nothing, other than other than this year you paid 76 cents per thousand for fire protection tax. If the preliminary budget is adopted, you'll pay 77 cents. You will not pay anything for the Malta Water District.
I realize that,
Yeah.
but the only thing we're gonna see 1 penny increase in our taxes for the fire district.
For
and
the,
that's
well,
it.
then it's nominal for the, I don't even think it's a full cent for the ambulance,
Yeah,
Malta Stillwater EMS.
okay. All right, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Jim Thoman, 6 Kennewood Drive. Along with the only 1 cent increase for the fire district, I was just curious, is this a question answer? Is Round Lake, has there been any inquiries or kind of looking into them paying anything into the fire protection?
As we've had discussions about it, but as I've said before, the town of Malta has no power, the town of Malta cannot impose a tax on the village of Round Lake. They're a separate, municipality.
How come the fire district is okay with protecting them without having them pay, though?
We actually contract with the village of Round Lake for the fire protection services, and then they basically give that money. They don't just give it to them, but the Round Lake Hose Company is their agent. And again, that's between them.
Okay,
It's between the village of Round Lake and the hose company.
okay. I'm just wondering if that could be a future negotiation on Malta's part, if they try to increase our rates, be like, you need to,
Well,
Same-
well,
same
the answer to your
thing.
question was, it was a no, that they're paying taxes. So anything can be negotiated in the future. Or they can, Round Lake residents come on up and say, hey, we want to jump on board for the big win and pay our fair share any day. We could also do that.
yeah.
And then, we do pay them, we contract with them, but we don't always have to, we could always start new contracts.
Oh, every time the fire district comes up, I'm gonna bring it up.
Fair enough.
I want to also to thank you for bringing that up, because this is the third year we've asked that same question, and we still don't have an answer. So I think it's time to,
We got our answer. The answer is no.
yeah.
That's going to continue to be no. We have no
Haven't
power to
gotten
change
the
that. They have to change that. That's the bottom line.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mark Hammond, Malta Ridge. Along with the fire tax issue in the contracts, I'm a little confused. This was brought up a year ago. I remember it very well, by the way. But I also remember discussions that were happening during some of those meetings when we talked about the Round Lake pay, no pay, what do we give? We pay Round Lake, the village, then that goes to the fire department. With all that aside, I know that you, Supervisor, and the mayor of Round Lake at that time, Gary Putnam, spoke at a meeting and said that you were on the way to working things out. That was a year ago. We haven't worked on that yet and worked that out. I'm just curious if we're ever going to have an answer to this. I think it really doesn't show much in the way of fighting for the residents of this town when we're protecting the village, which is a very small part of this town. So if we haven't done it, and apparently we haven't, I'd like to know when we're going to. Do we have an answer for that?
Well, as you know, the town of Malta we have no
I'm aware of
jurisdiction
that, but
over
there's
the
more
village
than
of
one way
Round
to skin
Lake.
a cat as well.
We can encourage,
So the rest of the town continues to pay for the fire protection for all the residents of the village around Lake. And they don't pay, and we're fine with that. I'm not fine with that as a taxpayer. And I really think that it's irresponsible that this has not been worked out when the two key individuals, the mayor and yourself, a year ago, said you were going to work on this and straighten it out. Still waiting. And it's up to the rest of the board to also do their homework on this, not just one person.
anyone else? All right, thank you. We will close the public hearing then. It's 6:10. Next on our agenda, we have a presentation for a proposed, it says cell phone tower, but I don't think it's exactly a cell phone tower, but we will let Julia Monahan from Young Summer LLC enlighten us.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Julia Monahan with Young Summer in Albany. We represent the applicant who is proposing to put a micro cell facility adjacent to Roosevelt Inn on Route 9, which will increase cell coverage for Verizon Wireless. As you can see on this map here, the green is the improved cell coverage of that area. And it is the proposed facility, or the proposed antenna. Let me zoom out so you can see it better. It's a small antenna that is going to be on top of an already existing telephone pole. There's the antenna on top, and then there's equipment at the base of the pole. As you can see here, this is the existing on the left. We'll be lowering the beam so that the antenna can, or a cross beam that you see here, so the antenna can sit on top with the proper amount of clearance. And here's another simulation of the equipment on there. You see the antenna on top, the lowered beam with the base equipment, and there's a meter and radio frequency equipment in there. And then here is the current pole. And this is the simulation with our proposed equipment. So there's the antenna on top, and that's what emits the frequency. The base of the pole is the meter at the bottom, as well as the equipment base that has computer equipment that works with the antenna on top. Here's another view of the existing pole. And here it is with the added equipment. You'll notice these lines are elevated. With this change, they'll be raised up just to keep in line with the current standards of National Grid. It's a National Grid pole. And when they're in there adding this, they'll just update the rest of the pole to their current standards, which just means that the already existing lines will be moved up. It won't affect anything other than just a change in the location of the lines, which will also help our equipment to fit underneath those lines. And that's it.
So just first, a couple of questions. Have you received the the New York State DOT right-of-way permit and permission from National Grid?
Once we know when the day of putting the equipment on will be, then we can apply for the DOT.
Our legislation requires that you get a telecommunications facility siting permit from the town of Malta.
Mm-hmm.
And then, just so everybody knows, there'll have to be a public hearing on this. And we also will have to refer it to the Saratoga County Planning Board as a,
Hi,
hi.
my name is Nico, and I am one of the site acquisition folks from Verizon as well. As far as the DOT permit, we already have their approval. And we have approval from National Grid as well.
Okay, all right. So like I said, our legislation has a whole process. We can probably refer to the county planning board next week at our regular meeting, if that's what the board chooses to do. And then schedule a public hearing. Any questions?
I got a question for you. I've been a Verizon customer for years now. I found that my signal has dropped considerably. I've been on the phone with others in town. They're on a cell phone, Verizon, and they have to actually stand in a specific footprint to come from the other end of town to the other end. Is there any plans in increasing the actual bars in town? Is there been a cut back on the services since 5G happened? Because it sounds as if you have some dead areas in town, and if that helps the problem, is there any plans for other increased wavelength throughout town?
Yeah, so Verizon is constantly trying to, I mean, I'm not an RF engineer, but we work with them a lot. They're constantly trying to update the network as the users grow. So one of the biggest issues is, the average person has, 3-4 devices on the network. So solutions like this is what they call gap fillers, where we call them almost like hotspots, where there are dead spots in and around the network, and they try to fill these gaps as they go. One of the main problem is, to build a site like this, it takes a full year just to get it from it doesn't exist, getting through zoning, getting through construction. So they are working on building the network, upgrading the network. It just takes so much time. So, I mean, fortunately, the more boards we've gone to, more people are realizing that the network is struggling. There is a need. And we're getting faster approval through zoning because they understand, well, emergency services, people are dropping calls, you're trying to call 911, you're not getting a call through. So we've been getting a lot of help from the zoning boards on getting approvals quickly so we can build. But I share your sentiment. I have Verizon as well. And there are spots sometimes where I can't get a signal. So I know they're working on it, but it just takes time.
I just figured if I said something here, it would get more attention than just calling them up on the phone.
I don't believe that this action needs to go before the zoning board. You need to get a permit, and then this board is the one that takes action, so. So that should save you some money.
Looks good to me.
All right, well,
I have a question. I'm Steve Gottman, the town attorney. Is the need to be here because of our local ordinance? Does it, because it applies to all towers or facilities? Because this is such a small thing on top of a pole that's not even in a town right away. It just seems like a rather harsh administrative step for you guys to go through. Is that a common occurrence? Do you need to go to most municipalities? I mean, just to put on, what is it, 1.5 feet tall on top of, or how tall is it on top of that pole?
Yeah, being in front of the town boards is a pretty standard in most.
For all communication facilities? I get it when you're putting a tower and the board wants to hear from residents and have a public hearing, but I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna even notice that thing on top of the pole.
Yeah, so unfortunately how, most town laws are written, it just says tower, which these aren't traditional, 200-foot monopoles or self-support towers. But unfortunately, because of how the code is written, we have to go through the process of doing it this way. What Verizon has done, though, is they've been signing a lot of what they call master license agreements with some towns. So City of Syracuse, we've done it. Colony, we've done it.
I don't know, it just might be something for our town board to
right.
consider for these type of
Yes.
things.
It
We want to get the service as quick as we can, I'm sure the board does, to residents to address Supervisor Craig Warner's concerns and others. If there is a mechanism, I think perhaps the board, I could take a look at it if you send over something like that, or,
Yes, I can bring that back to Verizon, but we've done many MLAs with different, Niagara, City of Niagara Falls, we've done them all over New York State, just to make the process a little bit
yeah,
more streamlined. Because really, it's really, for most of them, it's just a permit. You pay a fee to the town, so the town gets some money from it as well, and you just go and build it. Because like you said, they're really simple. Actually, 2 poles behind this proposed one AT&T has one, the exact same setup.
Yep, I wasn't sure that wasn't already up.
That was
I saw
AT&T.
it going by.
Yes.
Well, we'll do our best to make this as painless as possible for you. And yeah, if you want to send that over to my office, we'd be willing to take a look at it. Have our
do.
town attorney take a
Will
look
do.
at it so that the process can be more streamlined.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So we will start the body of our meeting here with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
Have a great night.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. It seems darker in here. Is it just because it's dark outside now at 6 o'clock? It's not right, but, next I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the town clerk for our October 7th meeting and our special meeting on October 23rd.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, comments from town residents. Y'all didn't come here just to look at us, I don't think. Mr. Weiss?
And I'm Rick Weiss. I live on Old Post Road, down in Malta, north side. I had a discussion with the highway superintendent a couple of days ago concerning my concerns about a culvert pipe that runs under Old Post Road. A large tree fell into the stream that water is conducted through that culvert pipe. And the tree is slowly rotting away. And as it rots away, pieces of it are coming off and floating down. And at this particular time of the year, they're not, because it's not much water flowing. But as the springtime comes around and the flow gets pretty dramatic in that pipe, and I'm afraid as that tree breaks up, it's going to infiltrate that culvert pipe and plug it up. And if it does plug it up, it's going to put 2 feet of water in the house that I built about 30 years ago. And the superintendent's said that, no, he's done the math and it's not enough. It won't reach that level. Well, it will. I promise you it will. We've done the math. And I just want to go on record tonight and have it in the meeting and in the minutes that I've been here and I've discussed this with him. And he has rejected doing anything about it. He just will flat not do the work.
The fallen trees on whose property?
The tree is within about 10 feet of that culvert pipe.
No, whose property is
It's
the
on
tree?
my property.
The fallen tree is on your property.
Right. But as the tree will migrate, and then it will be on your property or on the town property.
It's on-
And when it does, it'll be too late to get it out of there. So what do we do?
Hey, Rick, was that culvert pipe slip lined also?
Yes, it was.
And the cost for that is pretty extensive, I think. I'd hate to see that fail.
Yeah. Well, the original culvert, as you said, it was sleeved, and it's a smaller diameter pipe, but according to their calculations, that more water can flow through this thing. Don't ask me how a smaller diameter item can carry more water, but that's what they're telling me. But it also means it's smaller. That means it'll plug easier. It won't take as much debris to plug it as if it was larger. So,
I don't think it's going to be a town's habit to go onto personal property and start cleaning up personal trees. If something's going to happen downrange, and what if, that's a can of worms that, if it's, why can't you remove it right now from your property?
well, I don't have you know, an excavator. I don't have I don't have a crane. I don't have you know, I mean, I don't have any of that equipment. And it would just be easier to get it now than it would be to wait 10 years or 3 years or 2 years, whatever time it takes for that thing to fall apart and to plug that pipe. You know, it's just up to you.
I just think that there's going to be a lot of fallen trees in all the forests that we have around here. And he needs to be working on the highways and then removing personal trees from personal properties. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm on record as,
That's fine.
and if it floods my house, I'll be back.
What's the size of that
That tree was about 4 feet in diameter.
diameter?
It's about a 4 foot in diameter tree.
Jesus, that's a
Four
big tree.
foot diameter?
Yeah. It was a large elm tree.
Just throw it in your trash, Rick.
Yeah, I'll just go down and take pieces
No,
of
I
that.
feel for your situation, sir. I'm not making light of it, but
Yep.
as a position of the town, you know, I'm looking at that, and nothing personal. You know, I wish nothing bad on nobody, or your house for 30 years doesn't get flooded. I mean, I don't wish that on nobody, but that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay,
Thanks,
All right.
Rick.
I've made my comment.
Thank you, Rick.
Who's next?
Kathleen Mason, 11 Stony Point Road. Last week, a group of Malta residents concerned with the rate of development in our town sent a letter via email to each town board member. This letter outlined our recommendations for changes to our town zoning code in the area of planned development districts, also known as PDDs. For those in the audience or watching on Zoom that might not be familiar with that term, a planned development district is a change in zoning that allows a developer to build a higher density development on a piece of land than it is currently zoned for. Every time a developer asks for permission for this change of zoning, the board has to study the proposal and vote on whether to allow such a change. The regulations for PDDs that currently exist in our town zoning code are vague in many areas, which has made it very challenging for board members to approve or disapprove applications to build these higher density developments. I want to thank the board for your enthusiastic responses to that letter last week. We heard back from 4 of you, and all of the responses indicated that you believe that tightening up the language regarding the PDD approval process is a very good idea. We all know that Malta is developing rapidly, and it is considered a desirable place to live. We want to control that growth in a thoughtful way so that we can maintain our small hometown feel. Creating more clarity and restrictions on PDDs in our zoning code will allow the town to make it clear to developers in advance what we do and do not want and what our vision for the town is as we move forward. This is a far more effective approach than developers telling us what they think we should have. But in fact, it often just creates more profit for them and more potential problems for the town. Several board members have agreed to meet individually to discuss these recommendations for creating changes to the PDD section of the zoning code. We are in the process of setting up those meetings, and we really, truly appreciate your time and interest in this matter. And we are looking forward to speaking with you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. Anybody else?
Good evening. Kathy Eitzman, 60 Round Lake Road. In case you live in a cave and you haven't been any television or radio or newspaper, it's early voting. So I just want to say a shout out to the election inspectors that are manning those polls. I worked at the Board of Elections on the first day, and we handled over 800 people in about 8 hours. And the only problem I have with that is the number of inspectors they have is insufficient. I got 1 15-minute break and 2 bathroom breaks in 8 hours. So I just hope that the county will look at that number. I know at the community center, same thing. it's very difficult for them to get any kind of break, to get something to eat or get away from that. Okay, but thank you so much.
Thanks, Kathy. It is always a struggle to find people that are willing to be election inspectors, so if you have any interests, reach out to the Board of Elections. It is paid. It's not a volunteer job.
Right, and I do know several people that were not asked to work that would like to work. So I don't know how that works, but there are people that have not been tapped, so just let you know.
Thanks, Kathy.
Tara Panesso, Mayapple Way. So I looked at the agenda for tonight and I got all excited, and not in a good way, about proposed cell phone tower. So of course, that's very vague, so I didn't know what exactly that meant. And I was thinking, well, maybe it has to do with the communications tower for the New York State Barracks. So I'm saying that sounds really interesting, or even another cell phone tower, a big one. So I'm glad I came here to find out that that's not what it was. But I just want to know, is there any new information about the communications tower that the barracks has had on Route 9? About if it's going to be moved, if it's, what's going to happen? Is there any new information about that?
There is not. I ask that question regularly, and I get a very non-answer. I really suspect that they don't want to move it because of the logistics of moving it. So, but as soon as I get a definitive answer, I'll
Okay.
make sure you know.
All right,
So.
thank you.
Anyone else?
Jim Thoman, 6 Kennewood Drive. I don't think there's going to be any further agenda items about this. I think everything's been fully approved, and now it's in the construction and planning and infrastructure phase of it, is the Mountain View Estates. Through a FOIA request, I've recently found out that there is an extension of Surrey Road that goes into where that access road is into the new development. Now, as of now, I've been on the HOA for Avondale I was off for 1 year, but probably about 7 years, not contacted once by any planning board or town board about what that impact's going to be to our HOA. My concern always with this development has been the access road. I understand that people have concerns about water, electricity, drainage and things like that. Those are things that happen with any development. You have to be concerned with how that's going to affect anything downstream. But the access road is a new thing, connecting two separate HOA properties together. I still have not got any assurances on the sidewalks that are being put in, who's going to be responsible for snow removal now that it's a town mandate to take care of that, except for some roads that there's a little bit of discrepancy that they're between asphalt and concrete, it's considered a trail, so the town's not going to do that if it's a town property. But anyway, that's a little bit of discrepancy there. The gates, I guess no information on the actual closing mechanism of those gates have been, if they're just freestanding and moving around. Again, I still don't understand sidewalks. I understand the access road for emergency purposes. I would like assurances that access road won't be used during construction of all these 119 homes, because our development is not set up for contractors and their pickup trucks to be going through on a daily basis for the 2.5 to 3 years that it's going to take to build all these homes. I have not seen any assurances, and all I've heard from the time that the first Teams meeting happened during lockdowns, the residents obviously had their concerns with the development going back there, but most of the people just voiced concerns with that access road. Even though we all knew that access road was there, didn't exist, but it's still there laid out in a map plan or a paper plan or whatever they want to call it. But I think Marini was hoping to purchase that farm behind there to use that to connect and make Avondale larger. I don't think anybody ever thought that it was going to be used for just a separate HOA development. But regardless, so I just would like going further, I know there's probably these questions can't be answered right now, but I just want assurances that Who's going to pay for sidewalks that don't exist now for an HOA that's going in? They should be the ones paying for them. Who's going to, if that road is emergency access in the wintertime, is the town still going to go through and plow that road? Or is Avondale responsible for cleaning that road? I mean, these are things that we need to be aware of, because it's like basically somebody just putting up a structure in your backyard and said, guess what, now you maintain that. And that's basically what it seems like. And everybody keeps saying, well, we're bringing up these arguments now. It's been years. This stuff's been going. There's never been, we've never been contacted by the developer to assure us. I mean, at least a little bit of good faith on their part would be nice. And we've gotten none of it. And in fact, during the initial planning part of this, he did a presentation where in the buffer zone between the farm and Avondale, which there could be garbage coming off, because East Line is a 55-mile-an-hour road, and the garbage could be coming off of garbage trucks during garbage day. But he tried to make it out that Avondale was actually in between the farm and Avondale dumping garbage. When there's no sidewalks over there, there's no way residents can get over there. And again, with the agricultural easement under this, does the town really expect somebody who has plywood over their front windows to maintain that property in perpetuity? All of these things, I really don't get it. And it just seems like in the name of just making this new development and getting this agricultural easement, the current residents there don't matter. Kind of like taxpayers don't matter, but we're going to put sidewalks on Route 9 because of possible future development over there, even though there's only renters over there. I just, those kinds of things need to be considered. The people that are currently in the town paying taxes that have lived here for a decade or more should come first, and not new developers and not non-taxpayers.
If you will leave your number for the town clerk, I will try to get some answers to your questions and call you back tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else?
My name is Tom McDermott. I live at 19 Avondale. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Jim covered virtually all the points I wanted to make regarding the access between Avondale and Mountain View. But basically, just in summary, the way the deal was supposed to be cut, that the planning board had agreed to, was that there'd be 2 sets of swinging gates. These swinging gates would not have a lock on them. They would simply swing free. Problem with that, needless to say, is who administers and governs the gates? Who's going to be responsible for ensuring that the gates are in fact closed when there's no emergency vehicles going back and forth? It looks to me like right now, the way this is orchestrated is the burden is on the Avondale community. And clearly, over the course of time, this is going to cause a conflict between communities. When people move into the Mountain View, there'll be nice people, there'll be families, we'll welcome them, but clearly, we don't want a point of contention. I urge the board to ensure that emergency access in the spirit of what the planning board had agreed to is carried out. That in fact, that it's administered and held to. Specific concerns, Jim mentioned sidewalks. Another concern is road grade. What will this road look like? Will it be a gravel road for emergency access? Will it be a road like Surrey? Will it have catch basins? Who pays for that road? Is it going to be the Michaels Group, who's the current builder, or is the town obligated to build that road? This is the point of contention. The continuation of Surrey Road up through the gut of Mountain View just sends a wrong message to us. It implies to the residents that that's going to be a clear thoroughfare across the emergency access. And our concern is that all Google Maps and Bing Maps will just show the continuation and be a cause of confusion for people coming into the neighborhood. A few of the things I picked up on through FOIA requests, the setback between communities is 40 feet, as I understand it. Our community is 40 feet from the property line. The new community is 40 feet from the border. There's basins, there's retention ponds, 10 feet up against the product line, against the property line. Clearly, that's not in the spirit of a setback. Put it in context, if your neighbor dug a hole for retention purposes 10 feet by your property line, clearly, that's not the way the intent of the setback would be. I think the interpretation was the setback was only for buildings, but it goes further than that. In summary, the concern is whether or not the town is committed to the emergency access and the way this was structured. I don't want to dig up the reversal on the water access from the Clifton Park Water Authority, but clearly there was 2 sessions. The board changed their minds on whether to grant access. To us, that sends a bad message. The message is that you really don't care about our community. The Surrey Road continuation, that's been on the mass for 2 years. There's been concessions to the developers from day one regarding road radiuses. The road turns, the way those roads turn in that community don't meet our building codes, don't meet our town codes. The town is granted a density bonus, 10%, to build more homes on that small property. And lastly, there were proper wetlands permits, waivers offered to the state, and the developer did attain them, but those wetland permits were across town property for the access road. And that town property is surrounded on both sides by Avondale HOA property. As Jim referenced, we never got notification of that. When we're disturbing wetlands that are adjacent to virtually our community property, I would think that we would have notification. Finally, in summary, again, I appeal to the board that the emergency access concept through community of Avondale and Mountain View is carried through based on the intent of what it was supposed to be. Thanks.
Again, Tom, like with Jim, I'll get some answers for you and reach out to you, so.
Hi, Ann Glacken, 45 Avondale Drive. I've got some of the same concerns that both Jim and Tom do. We've been engaged in this process since the beginning. We have a little more at stake because our house is right next to the access road. And we've lived there for 18 years, so we have a lot invested in the house and in the property. There are 18 trees on the side of our property. And when I spoke with the surveyor, they are knocking down 16 of them. So it completely takes away any kind of privacy that we have in our backyard. What they've told us is that the rationale for that is that they need to put in water and sewer mains. And that's the reason that they're taking them down. Now, some of the trees were put in by Marini specifically to act as a barrier to that road. So unfortunately, it seems like they put it in about a foot too far to the left of our property line. So I don't know if there's any way to get either the developer or the town to consider providing any kind of a barrier there, since they are taking down 16 trees. So that's one concern. Another one is obviously, ensuring that the commitment to keeping that as an emergency access road only is honored. That's really important to us. So if we can get, just verification that that commitment is going to be maintained. And I think that's really it. Obviously the sidewalk, that was sort of new news to us, and it may have been there all along, I'm not sure, but we were unaware of that. So I don't know who's going to maintain that, but
Could I ask a favor? You've discussed a broad range of issues. Would you email specific items that you want answers to
absolutely.
from the developer?
Yep, absolutely.
Email me,
Will do.
and I will follow up on it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
I
Ann.
appreciate, yeah, I know you guys have listened to us, throughout the process and appreciate your help.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on then to our meeting. The first thing on our agenda is comments from town board members and department heads, and of course, I have a few things. First, I want to remind anybody and everybody that the deadline for the Global Foundries Town of Malta Foundation grants is Thursday, October 31st. The Town of Malta, or the Global Foundries Town of Malta Foundation is an endowment that was established when Global Foundries was first put in. They've given away a lot of money over the last 10 years, and this is the grant cycle. So look at their website. It's a super simple application. It wouldn't take you more than 10 minutes if you have a good idea. Our next meeting will be November 7th. We are moving it because of Election Day. This is a polling place, and everybody's going to be out busy voting on Election Day, if you haven't voted already. I got an interesting letter, and this is note to future self. A resident appealed to the New York State Department of Transportation to have the speed limit reduced on 9P. I don't know how many of you are familiar with 9P, but when you turn on to 9P off of Route 9, the speed limit for a little while is 55 miles an hour, and then it goes down to 40 or 45. Well, a resident appealed to the DOT, and in about maybe, I guess they emailed on May 2nd of 2024. They got a response on September 6th of 2024. So we wait 18 months to get a response from the town. But this was really quick, and they are going to reduce the speed to, the 45 from Route 9. So let's get residents to ask next time instead of the town.
The town has applied for that reduction, I think, twice now.
Yeah.
And a resident reached
Yeah,
out. I wasn't
crazy.
aware of that,
Yeah.
but I guess they got a lot more clout than we do.
So we have also now sent out requests for proposals for two projects that we've been talking about for a while. First one is the Maltaville Water Project. That it has a November 26th bid opening, and it's a proposal for a spring construction. The RFP says that it needs to be substantially done by July 15th, so a lot of people down in Maltaville will be happy to hear that. And we also have sent out a request for proposal for our mid-block pedestrian crossing, which is going to go right out here. It'll be a crosswalk and a median to offer some respite when you're trying to cross Route 9, and that is a November 13th bid opening, so we should see some progress on those. Last, we had the Town of Malta with our Parks and Rec department hosted a Malta Halloween parade and dog costume contest. It was a beautiful day, and everybody had a lot of fun, and you got some pictures of the cute pups. The two of the dogs up there were actually won their costumes, the little corgi Sunflower, and the other one from this picture, you can't really tell, it's a gumball machine. So it was a lot of fun. Everybody had fun. The kids had a blast. There were a lot of activities. And so thank you to Malta Parks and Recs for hosting that. I think that's all I have. Anybody else?
The only thing that I have is I continue to get complaints about destruction, graffiti at the Shanataha Park out there. I hope it ends soon because it's getting a little bit irritating to everybody. Hopefully it'll stop.
Did we receive the financials from the Village of Round Lake regarding the Round Lake Fire Department?
Julie is shaking her head no.
Just so everybody understands, we have the 2 fire districts in Malta Ridge and Round Lake Fire Department. Each one gets the same amount of money from the Malta taxpayers. Malta Round Lake Fire Department every year is supposed to, both fire departments are supposed to give us their financials for next year's budget. We're still waiting on the financials from the Village of Round Lake, who manages the Round Lake Fire Department's books. It's very concerning to me, especially we want to be transparent. They're asking for $200,000 more, and I'm in support of giving the firemen a stipend. They're volunteers, they do a phenomenal job. But it's frustrating when we cut the check to the Village of Round Lake, and then they in turn give the money to the fire department, who then in turn pays the village to run their books, but yet we can't get the financials from the village. I want to make it very clear, I don't want any Village of Round Lake resident in fear that I'm not going to support the fire department, that they will have fire services, but this is very concerning, especially when we tout ourselves being transparent. Do we have an expectation when we're going to receive the financials?
It's my understanding they aren't even done yet, so they can't give us an incomplete document.
And how do they know they need $200,000
They're
more?
a fiscal year. That came from the hose company. Not, the budgets were submitted to us from the hose company and Malta Ridge Volunteer Fire Company.
I mean, that is a fair question. If they're asking for $200,000 more, then they should have an idea how they spent their money last year.
But we do. I mean, we got a presentation from both of the fire
No, we
companies
got
about
a
it.
presentation from Malta Ridge.
It was a combined presentation. They both prepared that together. So, and we got budgets from the hose company and Malta Ridge Volunteer Fire Company for proposals for, why they thought they needed more money. And a lot of it is that stipend. Anybody else?
Yeah, Matt, I agree with you. That's a little perplexing of why we can't get information when we're giving out money. Well, why don't we make one big fire company up in Malta Ridge one day, and we're only a mile and a half away, But, and the first answer I got, why residents don't pay fire tax, I can't repeat it at this forum. But anyhow, I want to thank Julia for the budget. Of course, everyone's unhappy, so you must have done a great job, because no one got exactly what they wanted, all right? So, thank you, and your staff, and who participated. That's all I got.
We're not done yet with that.
Yeah.
I just want to get that in early, so when the arrows fly later, you got a couple good ones.
Anybody else? On our agenda tonight, we have one action item. It is, Roger has found yet another employee he wants to hire. He still has a couple of vacancies. So this resolution acknowledges the appointment of Sean Koenig to the highway, as a highway equipment operator.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The next items are all just discussion items about, our meeting for November 7th. First one is, we will have a resolution to accept exceeding the tax cap for 2025. I think we discussed that earlier. Any of my colleagues have any further questions or comments about the tax cap?
I just want to say that I've always been an advocate of the clean water in our area. I've looked at all the numbers from the start, evaluated the quality, and I totally believe that this was a good deal, not for the town, but for the residents of our town. Because if a private corporation ended up buying them out, I guarantee you without any questions, your water fee would have probably doubled. Without any question. And, you know, it was a win-win-win. And when Cynthia was talking about thanking the planning department and the water department, she left out one thing. That was the last town board. The town board busted our fannies for about 2 years negotiating this deal. And I want to thank Mark Hammond, who led that troop. I want to thank the lawyers, the comptrollers, Julia, to put that deal together. If somebody asked me 8 years ago if Malta was going to be in the water business, providing very clean water, I would have said absolutely not. There was not a doubt that I ever thought of it. But we were given an opportunity when I realized that the Maltaville Water District, the first time it went through, we put the campaign out there 3 days before the vote on it. Every one of those households got a letter from Alex in Saratoga Water. And in that letter, he said he could provide water for that group of houses for less than the town. And guess what? The vote on it failed, instantly, failed by, I think it was 17 votes. They were denied clean water for years. Moved the calendar forward. COVID happened. Mark came up with a pool of dollars to help fund that project, that water district, reducing the overall cost for every single household. Now, tonight, Cynthia said construction should be finalized by
It's-
July.
The RFP, yep, the RFP calls for it to be substantially completed by July 15th.
So that's so absolutely super. What Malta has done in the past 3 years regarding water will result in keeping our town sound for years coming forward. I promise you. Did I want this tax cap extended? Absolutely not. But there was no way possible that we were going to bond that and have that money pass through our town and end up where we are today. Our water would have doubled easily, maybe even tripled. So I want to thank you, and hopefully next year we'll be back on track. Thank you.
Anything else? The next item that we will just, hopefully next week, we will adopt our 2025 town budget. We worked through the tentative budget, and we have now filed a preliminary budget with the town clerk. Some of the changes in the preliminary budget are, the original tentative budget in error left out the drainage district. We established some time ago a drainage district for the new residential construction on Dunning, and it just was an oversight. We, as in an effort to balance it, we increased real property taxes for some of the other expenses that we talk about. We are planning for to buy another piece of equipment for the planning department. That's an $11,000 change. We're appropriating another $240,000 for a truck for Roger. He got a bid on the truck, and it was more than we expected, so that's a change. Again, oh yeah, we increased sales tax more. It's $27,000. The other is at the insistence of my colleagues, we have, I restored the salary of the supervisor to what it was originally, and we added the 3% COLA for the town board members and the supervisor. So those were the changes from the tentative budget to the preliminary budget, and we will have a public hearing next week before it's adopted, and where residents can, express their concerns. Again, it was a tough budget year this year. We anticipated, there were a couple of revenue streams that in 2024 underperformed. So we were reluctant to go too far. We don't really have any real expectation about where sales tax were going to be. We tried to budget conservatively as far as our sales tax revenues, and that's based on several factors. So we'll see that next week. Any comments or questions from my colleagues? We also have a request for a water easement from the New York State Office of General Services for the New York State Police Barracks. You may recall that we gave them an easement to disrupt our trail, to put a water line underneath it. Well, part of that, we need an additional easement from the state for them to put their water line through there. What happens is they will install the water, but we will still own the infrastructure. So we still own the water. It will happen to be on their property. That's kind of how it is with all of the water that's on private property. When we assumed the water company, we assumed those easements also. You might know, if anybody was paying attention, the original easement that went up on the website was the easement that the New York State had with Saratoga Water Services. That was never actually adopted. It originally called for the town to pay $5,000 for the easement, but we told them we weren't paying $5,000, so they took that out, and now the names are correct. The other one that went up originally on the website said Saratoga Water Services, but now the new one should be on the website for anybody to review. Any questions? The next item that we're going to act on is an easement for the, again, it's all about the water, for the Dunning Street residential that's being built on Dunning. 3 of their hydrants will be on private property, so we need to be granted an easement so that we can install those hydrants, and then we will remain, they still will be our property. Again, there's a map, if you wonder, it's hydrants.
Why are the hydrants on private property?
Just the way the system was designed. So they're not on the public, they're not in the public right away. Just the way the water system was designed. And it's common, I mean, everywhere. Hydrants are on private property. But again, this allows us to still maintain the ownership of them and repair them. And you look like you want to ask something else, Craig.
I am thinking.
I see your brain working.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of flexibility into hydrants. I know usually we try to put them 500 feet apart in town.
I don't know, I didn't do the engineering, so, I mean,
It's 500 to 700 feet, I think.
I mean, they're probably at least that. If you look at the map,
Yeah, 500, but,
if you look at the map where they are, the ones that are in question, some of them actually are on the right of way, or they're actually on property owned by the town of Malta. But there's one up here. There's 3 of them.
is it because of setbacks of our houses, or?
It's for a topic of discussion, right?
It's for discussion, yes.
I'll wait. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, that's the way the system was designed and where they placed them.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I got nothing.
Oh, faking me out there, Al. Anything else on the hydrants?
Yeah, Cynthia, I'll just clarify for Craig, all of this is from the approved subdivision.
Right.
You know, this isn't something new, this is just to finalize what was put in place. So, you know, that was reviewed by planning board, engineering, legal at the time. And now we're just effectuating the easement. It could have gone to Saratoga Water Services if it was constructed further, but since now we acquired the system, it's coming to the town. That's the only change.
Yep.
Next on the agenda, just discussion, Julia and I met with our representatives from Marshall and Sterling, who manage our health insurance for our employees. And it was recommended to us, and we agreed that we basically keep the same two plans that we have, one with MVP, one with CDPHP. Unfortunately, of course, there's going to be an increase, and we knew there would be some increase, but after evaluating all of the different scenarios for different companies, we felt that this is the best value for our current employees. There is a, they will be in-house here all day to talk to employees about their what works best for them on November 18th, and that is in the open enrollment. It's November 18th, right? Don't look at me like that. It's on the calendar for November 18th. I double-checked. So that they'll be able to meet with any of our employees on that day and discuss their options. It's during the open enrollment period, so that's when people can change. Anybody have any questions, comments? Next, I'm hoping that next week we will adopt the employee handbook. We put it off for an extra month. There,
I may be remiss in reading the hundreds of pages on it.
again, there aren't major changes. We haven't really changed anything since our original discussion, anything of any real consequence. There may be other minor changes that we can maybe discuss next week as a result of some contract negotiations that we have ongoing. But like I say, the changes that I announced last time are still the same ones now. It's mostly just language. No real major policy changes. Any questions? You finished the last, 120 pages before next week.
Not a problem.
Our highway superintendent has asked that we once again amend his 284 agreement. The 284 agreement is the agreement between the town and the highway superintendent to provide funds for whatever he wants to do. He's got a little money left, burning a hole in his pocket. So he would like to do some culvert, and it's the Mallard Cove, right, Roger? Is that what's new?
No, it's Lake Ridge. We have to,
Oh, Lake Ridge is not on here.
well, that's part of the slip lining.
Okay. Okay, well, so then this 284 agreement that's in front of me tonight is not accurate.
No.
I do see something that says culvert, pipe, and stormwater drainage, but it says Mallard Cove, not Lake Ridge. So that will need to be changed. This one says $75,000, culvert, pipe, stormwater drainage, Mallard Cove. That should be Lake Ridge? Okay. Have Nancy change that and send it over. So Mallard Cove, you're safe. Lake Ridge, watch out. Any questions about that? The last item, not the last item, next item is when we purchased Saratoga Water Services, there are 147 parcels that are in the town of Stillwater. Originally, we didn't think that they were going to form a water district, but I got notice that they do plan to form a water district. And all that item is they want to declare themselves as lead agency for the State Environmental Quality Review Act legislation, and because we own the system and we're a municipal and adjacent municipality, we're identified as a involved agency, and they're just asking that we sign off on them being a lead agency. If we do nothing, it's assumed that we consent, so just wanted really the board to be aware of the fact that they're forming a district and the town of Stillwater will be lead agency in that action. The last item is our water department. You know, we're having some learning curves here, you know, those things that need to be worked out. And one of the things that we had found, since the administrative person over there is just one person, and nobody else can actually collect money, water rents, because it needs to be done by a receiver of taxes. We've appointed her as a deputy receiver of taxes, but she's finding difficulty in getting any time to herself and doing the banking. She's got to do the banking every single day, and of course, she's entitled to a lunch. So we're proposing to establish walk-in hours for the water department to make it more convenient so people don't show up and she's gone. There'll be established hours. I'm proposing that the walk-in hours for payments be from 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then again from 3 to 4:30. So that 2 hours will give her time to do the banking and take a half an hour lunch. And I think, you know, this board establishes hours for the department, so it's probably an action that needs to be actually taken by this board. So if you...
Question, is there gonna have a drop-off inside the lobby area? They show up in their clothes, can they drop it off into a?
The Dropbox is actually there and installed. It's in the, sort of facing the parking lot behind the court, right next to the court's big mailbox. It's clearly marked water department, so people can drop their water payments into that Dropbox also during that time.
Has their phone system?
For now.
Right now?
For now.
For now?
Yeah, the phone system gets a little squirrely. If something else happens over here and they go to try to fix it, then it might get messed up. Right now, everything seems to be working fine, so we're
Do we
all
want to
holding
call the
our-
number again and see if someone answers?
Yeah, see who answers.
Phone works.
Yeah. We are investigating the possibility of a new phone system. So that, more to come on that, because this is old and can't be maintained and doesn't have a lot of bandwidth. Yeah, so we'll see. That's all I have on the agenda. If there's nothing else from my board members, I can open it up to additional comments from the town residents, from residents. Seeing none, I will ask that this board enter into an executive session and attorney-client privilege. The executive session is to discuss contract, an ongoing contract negotiation, and the attorney-client privilege is for a ongoing litigation.
Yeah, just to
Discussion.
clarify, it's the highway union contract.
Highway union
which is
contract.
Authorized under open meeting laws for our discussion in executive session.
This board will not be taking any action afterwards, so we won't come back out and do stuff after y'all leave.
So you're
Promise.
gonna need a first and a second for that.
Yeah.
So move.
Second.
Al, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.